Okay, everybody, we're all going to get started. Welcome to the Tuesday with Neil, the first one of March. We're going to be going over three things in particular today. Okay, we're going to be going over the digital signature. We're mainly going to go over how your customer is supposed to sign your application. Okay, then we're going to go over POPI consent and why it's important to be conscious of that when if you are using skip application, right? If it's turned on for your company, you need to be conscious of why POPI is so important when you're doing a skip application. Okay, so firstly, let us start with POPI. Okay, so when your customer is completing any credit application, a lot of you, well, most of you on the call by now will know that POPI is a step in the credit application that happens in step 2, right? Where the customer simply says, I give consent so that you may share my name with these other parties so that we can do reporting and statement analysis for you guys. Okay. You have to get this consent, especially in South Africa. It's very, very important that you get POPI consent. Okay. Now, where do some people go wrong in this case, right? Is they don't have any POPI consent documentation. They don't have POPI consent in their paper-based terms, but then they'll send a skip application through the system and that comes through, and now you've got that customer on your system and we do a research report on that customer for you, but now you've got no POPI on them, right? Which is a big problem. So you want to make sure you always have that POPI consent, and a really good way to get POPI consent and to get updated terms and conditions signed is through a limit review, right? Now I know at the moment you can only send it off to a customer if it's an increase. But remember, it is on the roadmap that we are going to edit that later down the line in the future and let it be so that you can just add documents to your customer. Okay. But when we look at our POPI, okay, all that the customer needs to do is click on the view consent details. And remember, that brings up their little short description. I'm not going to bring up a POPI description because each one of yours is different, right? So you guys will have your different names and your different requirements. But essentially, as you guys will know, most of you have been in trainings with me where I've shown you the credit application in the customer's hands. And it's just a short write-up of they're giving consent, and it shows them the 4 or 5 companies that we share their name with in order for the reporting and statement analysis. Okay, so that's like for the financial analysis and the research reports and all that. We need the POPI consent so that we can use their name, etc., etc. So if you do have the skip application feature, right, just be mindful of that going forward. If your company doesn't have a POPI document, just see what you can start doing about that. You're welcome to reach out to us. We'll guide you in the right direction. We're not an officiated POPI provider or POPI company, but we can point you in the right direction, right? So if you guys have any questions on the POPI consent, you can put your hand up now. I'm going to unmute your mic and you can ask your question. Okay, fantastic. It is quite a small and self-explanatory section, so I didn't actually expect many questions on this section, which is perfectly fine. Where I want to dive and concentrate the most is actually on how the customer signs the application, okay? Because if you get the wrong signature on the application and that app goes to court, okay, and that the investigation takes place and you see that, okay, actually this purchasing manager signed this credit agreement and it wasn't the director, right? You're going to lose that case. Okay? You're going to lose all that money, right? So you don't ever want that to happen. So you need to make sure that the customer is signing the application correctly, okay? And as you all know, if you've run into it before where they have signed incorrectly, it's quite the process to get them to actually sign it correctly at the moment, right? Later down the line, we will be able to go back and get them to resign. But for now, you guys know that you need to get those details, those T's and C's of yours signed by that person that said that they've signed this application. Again, which person will that be? That'll be the director on the drop down, or remember, if it's not a director, it's just simply other, right? And then they pick their name. So what I've got here, right, I'm going to put into the chat for you guys. This is a little bit of a guide that I've built on the signing procedure, okay? So it just details what happens if a director needs to sign and what they need to do, right? And then it also details what the PA, for instance, can do if they wanted to sign, right? The personal assistant of the director, which they can do if they have a board resolution, right? If someone's got a board resolution, they have the power to sign on behalf of that company. Okay, so there's your two little instruction manuals there. And now we're just going to quickly go through these together. I know that we know these steps quite well, but it's always good to just refresh our brains on how they work. Okay, so remember when we get to step 6, right? That's just after we've completed all the custom questions on the application. Okay, and remember each time we press on that next button, it saves our progress, right? So when your customer gets to the end of step 5 and they hit next and they go to step 6, the terms and conditions, that's where they do the reassigning, right? If they're going to reassign to their director, or they're going to reassign to someone who can reassign it to the director, or they get their board resolution at that point, right? Then they go to step 7. Okay. Now this is step 7. Remember, step 6 and 7 are the digital signature. Okay, so there's not a physical place where, like on a PDF, where they would go and put their signature, right? It's step 6 and 7. Okay, so they accept the terms and conditions in step 6. Then step 7 is focusing on who they are, right? Because it's all good and well that you accepted the T's and C's of the deal and the contract, but who are you? Do you have the power to do so, right? So we're going to analyze if you have that power through either you have to be a director or your board resolution. So if it got reassigned to a director, right? The director is going to use that drop down that you guys all know so well, right? And remember that drop down is a live drop down. We don't edit the names in that drop down. Okay, that pulls through from the CRPC and the credit bureau. So those directors, if they change, that drop down changes along with it. All right. We are yet to run into one where the director isn't on the drop down. So if you ever do pick that up, please let the support team know as soon as you can, because that'll be the first one we've seen, and then we will deal with that. Okay. But you shouldn't run into that problem. Okay. So we've got our drop down where the director will go down, they'll find themselves on the drop down, and they click on their name, and then they're simply just going to put in their ID document. All right. And then that's going to trigger the OTP. Okay. And that is one of our other topics that we're going to discuss in this session, but we're just going to loop it into this chat about the signature. Okay. So when the customer gets to the end of the app and they put their ID copy and they're waiting for their OTP, and sometimes the OTP either gets blocked by their mail server, because remember, it's from a no reply mail, right? Let me actually get you guys an example of what the OTP pin looks like, the mail address, sorry, so that you guys can, at least if your customer ever struggles, you can send them the mail address for which the OTP will be coming from, and then they can at least unblock it or release the mail. Because 99% of the time when the customer isn't getting the OTP and we've double checked the application in the back end, then that means that we can see, remember on the event timeline that we went through last week, we can see if the customers opened the mail, right? And then on most of the OTPs that don't deliver, we'll see, oh, okay, this OTP has gone through to the customer, but it's gotten stuck, right? Which means it's either sitting, waiting to be released from their mail server, or possibly it's gone into their junk or spam and they have not spotted it. But a mistake that a lot of customers seem to make as well is when they, well, not a lot. When I say a lot, I mean out of the people that do this incorrectly, right? So let's go and have a look at what we're talking about here. Okay, so we've gone through the consent side of things. We've gone through the signature side. We've gone through how we would trigger our OTP. Okay, now let's talk about how we go and actually have a look at who signed our credit application. Okay, and that is called the application verification stage, right? So when we have a look at our stages, where do we check the signature and who checks the signature, right? Remember, TradeShield check two things. Okay, we check the signature and we check where statements provided if requested, all right? And this application verification over here is where we do the signature validation, right? So we have humans on our side that have a look at the signature, but we also want your approval team to look at the signature as well, right? So double check, make sure the right person signed, make sure the ID copy is correct, right? And just get all the dots, the I's dotted and the T's crossed, right? You don't want to end up in a situation later down the line where you realize that we made a mistake on our side and you didn't check it on your side. So always just make sure if you're an approver, you know what you need to be checking. Okay. As you all know, with experience with us, we do get it right most of the time, right? But we are humans, so we can make a mistake every now and then. And at that point, that's when you're going to reach out to the support team and you're just going to let us know that, look, this happened and we need an explanation, right? And then we will give you that explanation. Okay. One more thing I want to mention about the signatures is we don't recommend that you accept signatures from a shared mailbox. Okay, because remember how we track the digital signature, right, is through the emails that it goes through. So once that email gets reassigned to the director, that's how we know the director's got it. Okay, and think of it this way: like even if you're thinking of how the director signed your paper-based application, right? Unless you're standing there watching that person sign it, you can't tell that they signed it, right? So this digital signature that we track, we find it to be a bit more reliable because it's showing that it's gone to that director's email address, right, which is very personal for them. And they can only, a lot of people, as you guys know, directors, you know, they don't just open mails. Okay, so when that mail goes through to that director, they're going to go and action it most likely. So it needs to be something of value. Okay, so the director signed, the director's got the OTP. The most common problem people make with the OTP is they check the wrong mailbox. Okay, so now I was John at the start of this app and I've sent it to Director Sally. Okay, and now Director Sally is waiting for her OTP to come through, but they're waiting for it on John's inbox because John was the one who received the credit app first, right? That's the incorrect way to do it because it's been reassigned. And whichever address the app's been reassigned to last, that is the email address that's going to get that OTP. Okay. So if your customer is struggling to get the OTP and they phone you and they're in a panic, they want the OTP, they need to get the order out, you know what to do, right? You tell them to click on the resend OTP button at the bottom. Okay. If they've already done that and it hasn't come through, then you can reach out to us. Or you can just go to the event timeline yourself, like I taught you guys last week, right? And you can check if the customer actually got the mail or not. And then you can reach out to us and be like, look, my customer got their mail. They haven't, they say they're not getting it, but it says delivered on the screen, but they're not getting it. What can you guys do? And then we will reach out and help you and your customer. Okay. Are there any questions on the digital signature and the one-time PIN that the customers are getting at step 7? Any questions at all? I see, Renee, you've got a question. I am going to unmute you. Give me 1 second. There we go. You may unmute yourself, Renee.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I just want to find out if somebody else is signing the application on behalf of the director and that drop down obviously doesn't have the director's name. Do you have a different selection then for the person to sign, and then where do they attach the resolution?
So that directors, if that person's a director, their name will be on that drop down. No one's allowed to sign on behalf of a director. Right? No one's allowed to do that. They can sign on behalf of the company, but they can't sign on behalf of someone else. We don't cater for that at all.
So at what stage do they then sign on behalf of the company and attach the resolution?
At step 7. So when we go down one, so those 2 images I put in the chat for you guys, it breaks it down a little bit for you. You'll see just under there where I've selected other, right? Then I put my name down. So now let's say my name was John Doe. Put my name John Doe down, put my ID in there, then my board resolution documents, right? Only when I pick other on that drop-down list does that board resolution field pop up.
Okay.
That board resolution field doesn't pop up unless they pick
on
other.
step 7.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. You are more than welcome. See, we have another question. I'm going to unmute you now. Give me 1 second. All right, Jane, go for it.
Hi there. I should know this, but I don't, Neil. Is
No
there
problem.
case law around digital signatures? So, has there been cases where somebody has said somebody was on my computer and it wasn't me that signed it, that kind of thing? I'm not aware if there is case law.
Case law. I'm not too sure what you mean by case law, Jane. Do you want to maybe expand on that a little bit, or are
Yeah,
you just
so
asking if there's been an incident like that in the past?
So I just wondered, obviously, if somebody goes and disputes the fact that they signed and it went legal,
Yeah.
are there any cases where, in fact, the digital signature held up, even though he's got or she's got a defense based on the fact that somebody else sat on their computer or whatever? I just wondered how strong is that digital signature? I'm old, so I like to see it, and yeah, somebody's going to answer us there.
No problem, Jane.
Happy to take
Yes,
that
Amy's
one.
got her hands up. Go for it, Amy.
Good morning, and thanks, Jane, for the question. And yes, there has been cases where someone has said that they weren't the signatory, and then it went back into investigation to say that that is their email address. And if they decided to leave their computer open for access to other people, then they're still liable for negligence. So it very much has held up in court from a digital signature perspective. Where there's an issue is, if somebody has got their what's the word I'm looking for, their surety included in their terms and conditions, and somebody says, I didn't see it, so they might not be explicit. That's when the Consumer Protection Act comes into play, where they would then side with the individual to say, don't squeeze in terms and conditions where the person didn't read it. But when it comes to the digital signature and the digital signatures process, the OTP is very much what guides that. So just like with your bank, so somebody could say the same about your cell phone. Oh, they didn't have the cell phone and they didn't get that OTP. They didn't input to that number. But that is what the process is for. It's registered to your email address. It's gone through to you and you're responsible for it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you so much, Amy.
Pleasure.
Brilliant. I was about to say, I saw a lot of thumbs up there, so I'm
Yeah,
sure
that was me.
I'm sure it got in there somewhere. And Amy, while we're on the topic of surety, correct me if I'm wrong here, but surety needs to be a wet signature, right?
For now, surety can be a wet or digital signature,
Okay.
but it does need to be a separate document. So it needs to
Yes.
be explicit.
Correct. So what she's saying there, guys, is, and Bashi, I mean Amy, sorry. What Amy is saying there in step 6, right? In these terms and conditions where the customer can click and go view the terms and conditions, you're not allowed to just sneak your surety into there. Okay. You need to have your surety as a custom question, a downloadable document, right, on its own. Then that customer needs to be aware that you require surety and they need to sign that surety. And when it comes through to your approval team, remember, guys, TradeShield checks the signature of the application. We do not check that the surety was signed. Okay, that is for you guys to check in approval. Right. So the approval teams that are on this call and if it trainings with me, you guys will know what to check by now, right? And anyone that just didn't know, that TradeShield doesn't check surety. If surety is signed or not, now you know. Okay. Do not look at that. That is not for, that's no interest to us. We want to give you limit recommendations. Okay. That's our main goal. Okay, so we've gone over consent. Okay, we've gone over POPI now. Well, we've gone over a little bit of POPI, but we've gone over consent mainly. Okay, we've gone over the digital signature, and we've gone over the OTP. Okay, is there anything else on the call that anyone wants to clarify or ask about with regards to what we've been going over here? Or are we all happy? We're comfortable. We understand how to sign the application. We understand how to retrieve the OTP, and we understand why POPI consent is so important. And that if you are using a skip application, please, guys, make sure you have that POPI consent. All right. You don't want that to come and bite you later down the line. You want to make sure. I see Renee put a question into the chat. When will TradeShield provide a compliance service on applications. That I'll have to find out for you, Renee. So I don't want to just make up anything now. Okay, let me take that question to my exco team, and me and Amy will take it to wherever we need to take it, and we'll get an answer to that question for you, because I'm just not too sure. Maybe you can clarify what compliance service you're referring to. Are you referring strictly to POPIA? Oh, I need to unmute you. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Allow mic. There we go. You can now unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, Neil, what I'm referring to is there is compliance elements that has to be checked on every single application. And invariably that would mean that you need the expertise of compliance team that knows what to check for. If lack of a better word, is to check that everything on the application that has been uploaded is compliant within the application, and that the ID is a valid ID, it's the correct director, and the surety that was signed is signed by the director, and all that type of thing. So, you know, linking it back to IDs and the company registration and the VAT documents and everything. So everything that is attached at this moment is like loose attachments, but we need like a verification to say and to also, you know, so that is attached is actually the correct documentation. It's not just a blank piece of paper.
Understood, Renee. So we don't have any plans to do that manually in the future, as far as I understand. That's what we want your approval teams to take care of, right? But what we are going to be doing later down the line is giving you the ability to add documentation in. So if anyone missed anything, you can add it in at a later point. But we've got a lot of requests coming in to do something similar, where we are actually able to go and view the documentation. But what we do as a workaround for now, Renee, is we build due diligence questions into the approval step, right? So when it gets to approval 1, then we've got your approval 1 team there. And then if like you've got an apps that are coming through without documents or sureties not signed and stuff, we put due diligence mandatory questions in there where we say, have you checked that the surety signed? Have you checked that the ID is correct? Have you checked this? Have you checked this? Have you checked this? They say yes to all of those, then they can approve. Right? If there's no to any of those questions, they cannot move on and approve. So that's how we counter that at the moment. We don't have plans going forward to do the compliance checks on your guys' behalf, as far as I understand, but I can get further clarity on that for us. But does that answer your question, what we do as a workaround, the due diligence questions in approval 1? It's a very useful tool that people
I know
use.
there was talks about Encino, the old DocFox, that
Yes.
You may do a collaboration with them. And I haven't heard anything further happening on that part of the development. That's why I'm asking, when will you be able to reach the place where you can actually do a complete compliance service? Because Encino does, if you submit an ID, it actually gets verified that it is a valid ID. So they've got checks and balances in place to check that it is. And if a person provides a proof of residence, then it gets checked against the system that proof of residence is a valid proof of residence in line with any places that you've applied for accounts and your last known address.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I see Amy wants to take that one.
Yeah, I want to take that one. So Renee, that's actually available already. We are done with the creative work on our side in terms of being able to link it directly to Encino, and we've got the types of questions that they need to be answered as well already configured. And so it is a part of the workflow process. So if you'd like to look at how this looks and you want us to take you through it, we absolutely can do that. So I will reach out to your account manager and just let them set that up with you. It's already available. We are done with that configuration.
Yeah, my account manager is Andre. Okay, Mark.
I know what you meant. He does have 3 names. I know it can be quite confusing. I will chat to Mark for you, and we'll set up that demo for you on how it looks.
Yeah, Mark with these 3 first names, eh? Yes, that's crazy. Mark, Paul, Andre.
Mark, Paul, Andrew.
Eventually, you're like, which one do you want?
Lots of people ask me which one's the first name. So
but
don't
awesome
we'll
question
set that up for you, Renee. No problem. Pop
Thank
him
you.
a
I
message
look
for you
forward to
now.
that one.
That's brilliant,
Okay.
Renee. Yes, I love that memory of yours. That's really, really impressive. Are there any other questions from anybody else on the call? I see we do only have a little bit of time left. So any questions regarding, it doesn't have to be on consent, POPI, or the signature that we just looked at, right? It can be on anything. It's up to you. You just put your hand up and I'm going to unmute you. If not, and there's no more questions, then just, if you don't mind completing that poll that Amy just put up for us during the training, and then you can go out of the meeting room for the day, because the last thing we're going to now do is Q&A, unless you want to stick around for a question that somebody's got. But now's your chance. I know that Jane and Renee asked their questions. Does anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask? Or was everything clear enough in the session where we all understand and we're going to go forward and do everything that we need to do to make sure that we stay compliant with POPI, stay compliant with signatures? Okay, we want to make sure that everything is in order when we go forward and actually put the customer onto our books. Okay,
And
very,
inside
very
the poll
important.
today, I have also put a place for us to make comments for our product team as well. So if you have gone through this and you see where there might be a place for improvement, then we definitely want to know, so that we can take this back to business and say, you know, this is what the people on the ground feel, and this is how they feel that it could be done differently or better. So we would appreciate that as well. So that is part of the poll. A little bit of
That's
a bit of a
amazing.
questionnaire, less a poll, and just to test your knowledge a little bit and make it a bit exciting, and obviously feedback for us. But then, of course, that area of, we want to know from your side how it could look and or feel
Don't be
different.
shy with your ideas, guys. Like, if you
Yeah,
want to
don't
tell
be
us
shy.
you want us to start selling military equipment, put it in there, right? We'll see what we can do about military equipment. But yeah, just if you guys can, if you don't have a chance to do the poll, don't worry about it. But if you can, that would be really appreciated. But I see there are no questions, guys, so that's where I am going to leave you for the day. Thank you so much for joining the session, and hopefully I'll see you guys in next week's Tuesday session. Remember, these sessions are focused around the platform and Trade Shield and what the product can and can't do. So some of these sessions will be repetitive. So if you see another consent, OTP, and digital signature, feel free to not join that one. But if you see a session that you feel like you need a little bit of knowledge brush up on, like we're going to be doing setting an application out again, we're going to be doing workflow stages again, we're going to be doing it all, everything we did in Jan and everything we did in Feb, we're going to be doing again, maybe April onwards, maybe end of March. But it is a bit of a repetitive loop so that whoever missed sessions can join the next ones. Okay. So guys, I'll see you next Tuesdays. And thank you so much for your time today. Have a lovely day further.